Oh, this feels like a quarter life crisis. Oh my god. You might be thinking, Sienna, why are you sitting on the floor? That would be a really good question. Thank you for asking. This is like maybe not the most aesthetic place for a YouTube video, but it's what I've decided I'm gonna do. It's what we're doing. Okay, get with the program, I guess. It's what's happening. Deal with it? I don't know. I just like, every single time I film a YouTube video, I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be the one that I post, and then I don't do it. And I think I've realized that a large part of the reason why, first of all, it's just editing. I don't like editing videos. It just like isn't my favorite form of creative expression, which is a little ironic considering this channel exists. It's just like not for me. Like, it's not something I get any joy out of, and it is a chore, and it's like, why would I add to my list of chores? You know, like, it's just, right? Alas, here I am, and I'm gonna say that this is gonna be the video that I post, but this one is just a little bit different because this is gonna be where I end the entire video. I think part of it, I'm trying to do so much when it comes to my videos, if that makes any sense. Like, I always feel like I'm not entertaining enough, and I'm like, oh, I need to be like filming a day in my life, or I need to be like aesthetic, or I need to do like a cookie. Like, I come up with all these ideas and things that I feel like I need to do, but then I'm like, at the end of the day, that is just so much work, and it's like, I don't need to do that, actually. Basically, I'm 19 years old, and I'm like, I think I don't want to be this age anymore. I think this is like a really not good age for me to be, and I feel like I've definitely seen people talk about how like 18 is like the worst age to be, and I was trying to be positive and optimistic and rebuke that and be like, well, no, I'm gonna have a good 19, you know. I set these expectations for myself, and I'm like, I'm gonna be the exception. Like, that doesn't apply to me, and it's not true. It actually does apply to me, maybe more so than others even, so that's super cool. I sort of haven't really like processed the fact of like the life that I live, I guess. It's not that I'm alone in my experience. It's not like I'm the first 18-year-old to move out, but I did move out at the age of 18 across the country, and I'm living on my own, and I moved here when I didn't know anyone, and I had to become an adult very quickly with essentially like little to no idea what the fuck I was doing. And I had this vision in my head of me being an adult, and it felt so easy in my head, you know, as it does. And then it just simply wasn't that easy, actually, and it's like very daunting and difficult, and it feels almost embarrassing to admit that, because I have talked about how grateful I am for the fact that I moved, which is true. But I also, anytime I talked about moving since I was a child, because I've literally wanted to move out for forever, and every time I talked about it, someone would be like, oh, but like, that's so young, or like, it's so expensive, or it's so hard, yada yada. And I was like, I don't want to listen to the haters. Fuck out of my face. I'm gonna do it. And to my credit, I did do it. I'm doing it. But like, dude, it's because I am a student right now, right? But it's summertime for me. My school is done. My school has been done for a month. Like, so first semester, first like 4 months that I've lived here, it kind of was that idealized version. I kind of did, for some reason, lock in and figure out my shit. And I was able to create good routines, and I was able to prioritize time for school and work, and I somehow figured it out. And I think I just assumed that it was going to stay that way. And I was like, oh, if I can do it for these 4 months, like, that's clearly I'm capable, so I'm going to be fine. That's not the case. Sometimes things happen in your life that you can't control. And it has a fun little effect. So basically, I don't know what this video is. Okay, I just kind of want to film more long form talking videos because I just think that's where I thrive. And I always feel as though I have so much to say, and I think my close friend story on Instagram is kind of sick of me, so I need another outlet for my thoughts. Okay, so back to it. I really did believe that it was just gonna stay that easy. It was sort of a blissful ignorance, you know, unbacked up optimism. I was like, this is gonna be how it goes now, and that's super cool. I'm clearly able, I'm mature for my age, like, I can do it. It's like it's not that simple, it's not that cut and dry. In January, I lost my job. Bummer. The economy is shit, and they were like, we can't afford to pay you anymore, and I was like, oh, awesome. How am I gonna pay my rent? They didn't care for that question. But I was like, okay, that's really cool, and that happened at the beginning of my second semester of school. So that kind of threw everything into chaos a bit for me, because now it was like, okay, yes, I know that I am privileged enough to not have to like worry that if I don't have this job, I'll have to move back home, or I'll have to like live on the streets or like whatever. I'm in a place of privilege in which like that's not necessarily a worry. However, it does make things a lot harder for me because first of all, I don't want to rely on my parents for money because they're not like loaded. And so I always feel guilty asking them for money. And I do carry this like weird sort of guilt from when I was like a child because I used to do competitive dance and that's obviously a lot of money. And I learned the concept of money and the value of money very young. I think younger than a lot of people. In the sense that like I started working at the age of like 9 or 10 for my mom's business and I kind of like didn't really stop after that. I was like teaching dance, I was selling ice cream, like almost every summer I had a job of sorts. And then I got my first like full year job in senior year of high school, and then I worked full-time my entire gap year, and now I'm still working full-time is what I do, which is like normal, I feel. But like I was saying, when I was a child, I was doing competitive dance and that was very expensive, and I was always being told that like, I was always being told how expensive it was, and that's not a fault on my parents because it was that expensive, but it was always sort of like, you have to really love this thing if we're gonna spend the money on it. So that was like kind of stressful. And then it was like, okay, you want to go to ballet school, but you have to work the entire summer if you want to do that, which I don't think these things are inherently wrong. But I did always feel as though I was a bit of a burden, a bit of a financial burden on myself and my parents and the people around me. Because I would think, and I'd be like, okay, but if I didn't dance, I wouldn't have to be working all summer, or I wouldn't have to work as much, or I could be spending this money on like fun other things. But it was weird because I loved dance and dance was entirely who I was, and so obviously I couldn't give that up, so it always felt like a bit stressful for me, the idea of money, and that just never stopped carrying through because now that I live on my own, I obviously understand the concept of money a bit better, and I live in, I think, the most expensive place in my country. Like, I don't think there is a more expensive place to be living. I think this is like the worst that it gets. So that's not easy. Plus the economy is genuinely consistently getting worse, which is really cool, and I'm really happy about that. So recently I've been coming to this realization. I'm like, oh, maybe I actually can't do it. Maybe those people were right when they were telling me that it was too expensive to move here and that I should have stayed at home for longer and all these things. And it's so confusing to me because I sort of equate it to the same thing with dance, where I was like, dance is who I am and I love it so much, but it does cause this financial burden and stress that overwhelms me. Now it's sort of like living here and being independent and moving on my own is such a big part of who I am and I love it so much, but it also causes that same burden. And it's like, obviously there's not everything in your life is going to be a positive, right? If I still lived at home, I wouldn't have this financial burden and stress, but I wouldn't love my life as much as I do now, right? So then it's like, how can I be happy? Riddle me that. I don't know the answer yet. Hopefully we figure that out soon enough. But that's just, it's been really weird to have these adult responsibilities, and it's almost like imposter syndrome. I don't feel like I am ready for these things, but I don't have a choice either because this is a life that I chose for myself. And it's like, I'm looking now for houses to move into. Like, I'm moving out of this apartment and I'm moving somewhere else next year. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm looking at houses and I'm going on my own because my future roommates don't live here right now. So I'm doing all of these things alone. I'm like filling out tenant applications. I'm like trying to pick up shifts and like do all these things. And then I'm like, oh, but I have to tell my landlord this. And then I have to like get groceries and clean. And it's just, it becomes so overwhelming so quickly. And it's so, when I was younger, in my gap year, in senior year of high school, whatever, like it was very easy for me to just be like, oh, but I'm actually just gonna procrastinate and I'm gonna put it off. But it gets to a point where your responsibilities are too much to even do that. You know what I mean? Like when my responsibility, all I had to worry about was like making sure my room was clean. I could put that off, right? My room still isn't clean, mind you, but there's a lot of things that I can't just put off that I would love to. And I'm like, oh, I have to have this conversation with my manager and I have to like figure out this like social friendship issue in my life. And it's like, oh my god, it's very overwhelming. And I think navigating this part of my life it's just a lot, and it's just, I don't know, I've always sort of, as I was growing up, I was always told that I was mature for my age and that I acted older and that I was more capable. I was the oldest daughter, so as you can imagine, it's not like I wasn't used to being independent. A large part of my life was caring for others or making sure that I wasn't a problem so that my parents could care for my other siblings and whatnot. So it's not so foreign to me, but it's definitely a lot more isolating when you are now living on your own and you have no physical support system. Do you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of my friends that I met in school that were my friends for the past school year went back home for the summer. And so now I'm just here alone and I'm like, okay, cool. So we're back to square one a little bit. And I'm still in contact with them, obviously. I love you guys if you're watching this, but it's like, okay, now I have to figure these things out. And they're all younger. So it's like they can't necessarily provide all the answers for me. And it's like, no one can, obviously. This is something I have to figure out. But it's gotta be the worst age you can be. Like, I can't, because not only am I dealing with this adult side of things, but there's also the biggest part of me right now that wishes I was still a child, that wishes I had no responsibilities, that, like, I am so nostalgic that it makes me, like, sick, right? Like, the fact that I'm turning 20 in 4.5 months is consistently on my mind. And I try to be positive and think like, oh, but I'll be like in my 20s and like these are like really exciting years and a lot's gonna happen and change. Like that's super cool. I think a weird part of how I view my age and these different life stages of mine, I think a part of it that makes it really weird is the fact that when I was like 14, I was quite severely depressed and also suicidal. And I always had this idea of the end of my life being when I was still a teenager. I never saw myself surpassing that. It was very much like, I'm just not going to live those things because I'm not going to make it that far. I'm not capable. I can't do it. It's not happening. And then every year I just get 1 year older. And it's 1 year that I'm still on this earth and I'm still experiencing new things. And it's crazy too, because when I was 14, that was 5 years ago. And I think about how much I've lived since I was 14. Do you know what I mean? And how many things I would have missed out on if I did take my own life. But it's now really created this weird sense of my future. Because obviously you're not planning out your whole future when you're 14, but you kind of grow up with the idea of adulthood in your mind. I don't think I really had that. I just never saw myself being older than a teenager. And when I say teenager, I mean like 16. I thought like 16, maybe 18 was max, and then I was like nothing past that. So now that I'm past that, it's really hard to visualize even more of my future. Do you know what I mean? Because to me, this is like the end, and I'm already like on stolen time in my mind. So now it's like, okay, I also have to now plan out what my 20s are going to look like. I have to plan out my degree, my living situation, my finances, all of these things that I never thought would even be a thought on my mind because they weren't going to be a problem for me when I was 17, 18, and that's as far as I thought I was going to make it. So it was like, it's quite weird to think about. And those are just like the overly daunting things. But then you also get into the fact that when you're 19, you are still a teenager and you still have these like teenage issues in terms of your ideas of self-worth or your friendships or your like love life and all these things. You're still like a teenager a lot in those senses, if that makes any sense. Like, for example, in March, February of this year, I was really not doing well with my mental health. And part of that was because I lost 2 of the people closest to me. Well, they're still alive. They're just not in my life. And that was really weird because those 2 people had been in my life for so many years that it like, I'm not going to say that they defined me, but they were a huge part of who I was and who I am still. And so losing that sort of made me realize that I can't be sure that these people are going to be in my life forever. And that was very much a maturing experience. Not one that I wanted to have, mind you, but a reality check of sorts, because when you are younger, you do believe this person is going to be in your life forever because you say that and you believe it and you mean it at the time, but things change, people change. And it doesn't stay that way. And there's still the part of me that like wishes I could just keep those friendships and sort of stay friends with these people based on the memories that we did have for all those years. But I know that that's not what's happening currently. That's not the reality. They are not who they were 5 years ago when I considered them the center of my universe. Do you know what I mean? So it's like now I get to navigate these like falling outs with friends and this drama of sorts and this like chaos and internal turmoil. And also I'm like, oh, I have to pay rent next month. Like, that's actually the worst thing ever, I think. No, I'm being dramatic. I don't know. I also never feel like my problems are that big, and I feel bad complaining because I do have so much privilege and I do live such a good life in comparison to so many people. And I know that they say comparison is the thief of joy, but they're not lying because it's thieving away my joy. because then I feel like I'm ungrateful if I complain about the situation that I'm living in right now. But also I know rationally my situation is just hard. It is just hard, and nothing about, well, not nothing. A lot of my life isn't easy right now, and that's just like something I have to accept and embrace in a way. And it's not something I want to do, because so much of me just wishes I could be 15 again and have no worries in the world and just live that like life where I really felt like I was living my life, and it felt like that was gonna be the most important years of my life. And now that I'm beyond that, I'm like, and I'm gonna have so many more years to fucking figure out, like, yeah, I don't know. And I think also I always feel like I'm not doing enough in terms of how I'm living my life. I always feel as though I'm living it passively and I'm losing a lot of time, and I think a big part of that is my phone. I think I spend so much time doom scrolling and watching videos and living other people's lives through the screen without living my own, and that gets very overwhelming very quickly. But it also just feels like when I pictured myself moving here, I thought I was gonna have more experiences than I have had now. Not that I haven't had anything, but I just sort of like saw this life for myself that I haven't had yet. And that's like, I don't want to be disappointed because I set an unrealistic expectation, but the expectation wasn't met, so therefore I'm disappointed, if that makes any sense. So now it's like trying to be content with the life I have, knowing that that is like okay and it's not a bad thing that I'm not meeting these expectations that I had. But I sort of pictured my life as like having this like big friend group and like doing these things all the time and like being in a relationship and like working a job that I love and like not worrying about the financial stuff and buying new decorations for my apartment and building my wardrobe. And I had all these ideas, and sometimes these things don't happen. They certainly didn't happen for me, and that is okay. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't feel like shit when it's not your life, if that makes any... it's just... And I always pictured myself relationship-wise. When I imagined myself at 19, I really thought I was going to have a lot more experiences than I've had now. And I think that's a really hard thing for me, especially because all of my friends have had more experiences than I have. I'd say like most people on this earth have, if I'm being quite frank. And it's hard to not feel a sense of FOMO or feeling like left out. And every time I have to question like what is wrong with me that I haven't gotten to experience it and they have. And it's not that I'm not happy for them. I'm not even jealous, really. Like I want everyone to have that experience, but I'm like, why am I not? You know what I mean? It's so then I think about it, and then I'm like, everyone in my life is telling me that I would like be the perfect person to date or be friends with or whatever, and that like I am enough and whatever, yada yada yada. And I'm like, okay, so then what? And it's, oh God. I also know rationally that like I'm not this evil, disgusting creature who deserves no happiness, but sometimes I feel that way. And I think part of it too, and everyone's always told me this, I wouldn't call them high standards, but I do have standards. I think some people go into relationships and they don't have standards, and then it ends up shit, and they're like, why was it so bad? And it's like, well, he was a felon. Like, what the fuck were you expecting? You know, like that sort of thing. So it's like, I do have these standards for what I would want a relationship to look like or what I want a friendship to look like. And I don't just like let things be terrible in my life in that sense. If a friend isn't giving me what I hold the standard to that they should, and they have like no good excuse for not providing it and whatnot. Like obviously these situations are all very nuanced, but I do have a set of standards, and I know that I have like the output of love and care and thought and whatever, and I make it like my top priority always to be a good friend or to be a good daughter or to be a good coworker. Like I really am always so worried about how people perceive me that it's always something in my mind where I'm like, I want to be what I'm craving from others to others. If that, then it's just like, I know that the reason is because of these standards that I have, but then I think like, how have these not been met yet? Because I don't think they're so crazy, right? I made a video when I was in high school about love and sexuality. It's so cute when I look back at my old videos because I just feel like I was such a baby. But I made that video talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I haven't had like so many experiences and never been in a relationship, yada yada, and that has stayed the fucking same. And to be fair, I don't think at that point in my life I should have been in a relationship. Do you know what I mean? But for the past like 6 months of my life, I've just been like, I'm ready. Like I can't think of anything else I'd be needing before taking that next step. Like I am fully fleshed out as a human being. I have hobbies, I have aspirations, I have a sense of self, I have this maturity, I have communication, I have emotional availability, like I could do it. But now I'm like, okay, so who the fuck's gonna do it with me? I don't know where they're at, truthfully. I don't know where they're at. And it's not like I haven't put myself out there at all, but also I feel like the dating culture is so terrible right now that I don't even know what the most effective way of doing that would be. Because if you think I'm re-downloading Hinge, you have lost your mind. And also, Hinge means nothing to me. I go on it to doom scroll and then I delete the app. Like, I don't talk to anyone on there because that's not how I want to meet someone, because I just... Does that make... I don't know. But I feel like that's the main way people meet now, is like dating apps or like going out and stuff like that. And I'm just like, well, that's not what I want necessarily. I'm not saying it has to be like a rom-com, perfect, meet cute, like whole situation, but I don't think it's so crazy to want to meet someone like genuine and like with good intentions, and like someone that is also fully fleshed out as a human being and is mature and like is capable of these things. That like, I hold myself to such a high standard that I couldn't be with someone that doesn't also. Do you know what I mean? And I think because I'm at an age now where everyone's at different points of their life. Like, my cousin was 19 when she got engaged, but I also know some people that still live at home and aren't in school and aren't doing anything. And it's like, and I'm like, I moved out and I'm in school and I'm living on my own. And it's like, everyone's at different stages of their life. And I think that also makes it a little bit harder as well in terms of like finding someone. But I don't know, guys. I don't know what the real problem is. I don't know what the solution is. I've got nothing. And it just like sucks. Like, there's no like beautiful aesthetic way to put it. It just is shit. It's actual dog shit to know like how much of my life has been spent wanting any sort of intimacy in that way and like emotionally, and having that and then knowing that I'm not getting it. It's like, okay, that's really cool. So I'm a stupid chud and I should just die. No, that's not. It just feels like at this point in my life, all I'm thinking about is sort of this balance of things and priorities and places I should be putting my focus. And I think about it and I don't know what the solution is in terms of, you know what I mean? Because I'd love to just be a quote-unquote regular 19-year-old who gets to just like go out and party all the time and sees friends all the time and goes on these fun trips and does all these things. But that's not realistic for me. But I also know that I can't live my life only thinking about... So that's really cool. I just got cut off because I don't have any storage, so I had to delete some videos, but we're still back. Anyways, I think that what I was saying is that I'm just constantly stressed out with the balance that I feel as though I have to maintain, and that society kind of forces me to maintain a bit. And I haven't figured it out yet, and I think there's a lot of my life that I haven't figured out yet, and I kind of just don't like that. I watched a video kind of talking about this on YouTube, and he was sort of explaining it as when you are like senior year of high school, at that age, you sort of feel like you're at the top of the food chain in terms of being a child. You're like the oldest child you can be. But then when you reach this age of like moving out, whatever, 18, 19, early 20s, you're sort of back at the bottom, because now there's so much that you don't know that you need to know, and you have to sort of relearn your entire life again. And you knew everything you needed to know in around your senior year, towards the end of high school, end of your childhood. You knew the things you needed to know for childhood and for your adolescence, and now you have this whole new world of things you now also need to know. And you're back at being in this state where you don't know anything, and where you have to like ask questions and learn new things every single day. And it's like, oh my god, I don't wanna though. Then what? Then freaking what? It's like, I don't know why I put this pressure on myself to know all these things when obviously no 19-year-old does know everything they want to know. But alas, the pressure doesn't go away. Even though I think like that, the pressure is still there. So then what? So then freaking what? Okay, I got cut off yet again because I have no storage, so I feel like that just means I have to end the video, because I feel like that's my phone's way of telling me to shut the fuck up. There's no conclusion to this video. There's no happy ending. I just don't know anything, and I'm trying to be okay with that. So, like, being 19 is the worst, but also the concept of being older is the worst, and also being younger wasn't good either. So I'm just like, oh! So true, so true. But I'm gonna try to be normal about all of this. I'm gonna try and figure out my shit, I guess. It feels like that's all I'm doing these days is just trying to, like, understand what the fuck's going on. I don't know. And maybe that's kind of beautiful. Or maybe it's really sad. Anyways, hopefully I post this on YouTube. I love you guys. And I like sharing my thoughts, and yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I'm gonna lay in bed now before my shift, because I'm 19 and I can do that, I guess, so bye!